Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Linda P. Schact from Lipscomb University, and also Joy Garrison, USA Today correspondent at the White House. Linda, it appears to me you can certainly look back on your 100 days being with President Carter in his first 100 days in the White House. Looking back on that, how does what happened when you were there in 1977 compare to 100 days of Joe Biden in 2021?
Well, there's certainly echoes of Carter in Biden's first 100 days. You know, more than any other president before Biden, Carter ran on putting trust and transparency back into government and showing the American people that government could work for them. He came in after Nixon, after Watergate, and was trying to restore trust. One of the first things he did is something similar to what Biden did, and that is to create a culture where truth and transparency were expected. And so when he announced his cabinet and continuing into the first 100 days, you see people basing their conversations, their presentations, their answers on facts, and they give mini civics lessons on how does government work. Jen Psaki will stop in the middle of a briefing and say, well, for those of you who don't understand, for those at home who don't understand reconciliation, here's what it is. And I think there was a lot of that in the Carter administration, as well as reaching out to the press beyond Washington. It was a hallmark of the Carter White House that we brought in people from outside the White House press corps, outside Washington, every 2 weeks to meet with the president.
Joey, do you think President Biden's popularity numbers or job performance numbers are higher in part because he's not former President Trump? I mean, it doesn't seem we have the constant chaos and controversy, the 24/7 political noise in Washington. It hasn't gone away, but it does seem to me to be a bit more subdued, and the political temperature just a little bit lower in Washington these days.
Yeah, and as you say, Biden is polling approval ratings, depending on which poll you're looking at, kind of in the low 50s, whereas as Trump would have been maybe in the 40s during this period. Of course, you know, that's a lot lower, Biden, that is, than previous presidents after their first 100 days. But it's a sign of the more polarized country that we're in right now. You know, there was a willingness for the opposing party, voters from the opposing party, to support an incoming president more. You know, but what you're seeing now, you know, folks are still kind of locked in their camps. But I think among independents, et cetera, Biden has gotten high marks, and that's why you see his above Trump by a pretty healthy margin.
Linda, President Biden, like all presidents, issued a lot of executive orders early on. We've seen a lot of those, particularly as the administrations have changed in recent years. Was that more important for him to score these early victories, particularly given sort of the delays and uncertainties about him being able to take office, particularly the insurrection at the White House? He needed some early victories.
Well, yes, and also immediately following the insurrection, in his inaugural, he made some promises that he then, on day one, that same day, undertook executive orders to put in place. I think the most important thing with those executive orders was, yes, they reversed the things he had promised to reverse from President Trump, but they also signaled to the left that, yes, I will keep some of these promises. But at the same time, he pointed out, and has several times since, that politics is the art of the possible. And so what he might be able to do with an executive order, he immediately turned around and sent legislation to the Hill to follow up on those executive orders. Because at the end of the day, you're right, the next president could reverse them just as he reversed some of President Trump's.
Joey, it appears that the president's sort of caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. He would like to get Republicans to come support him, but one of the costs of doing that, he wants the Republicans to sort of to get rid of the old Trump tax cuts. That's one of the things the Republicans see as part of their legacy. He's really barking up the wrong tree to try to get that kind of support, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, several Republican senators, and you're referring to the approval of the American Jobs Plan, which includes infrastructure as well as a whole range of other things like caregiving, et cetera. It has a $2.3 trillion price tag, and Biden wants to increase the corporate tax rate to a 28% level. Now, the White House says, hey, you know, it would still be you know, lower than at any point than prior to the 2017 tax cuts. But Republican senators will tell you, look, that was one of the signature, you know, achievements during our our careers here, and we're not going to just undo it. So I think all that said is I agree that that's going to be a non-starter for most Republicans in the Senate. And so you just read between the lines, and to pass this, the White House is going to have to try to do budget reconciliation again, which would require just 50 votes. Of course, that means keeping all Democrats in line, but it would mean, they wouldn't face a possible filibuster by Republicans in that 60-vote margin.
And Linda, this budget reconciliation can certainly be another way to do it, but according to the Senate parliamentarian, you can only use that a couple of different more times this session. In fact, that's more times than some people thought they could do, but that does create a problem because then he has to choose which one of the legislations he wants to pass through to use budget reconciliation, meaning the others probably don't pass at all.
Well, that's right. And as someone who worked under Senator Byrd, who was a master of the Senate rules, there are ways to maneuver to get some of what he wants passed. I think that the notion of reconciliation and Joe Manchin's position on it is something that is going to force the White House to make modifications on both bills in an effort to get them through. I think the most important thing on the messaging for the tax bill is what he said in the speech this week, and that is he just wants people to pay their fair share. And I think that is going to be one of the things that they try to use even as they negotiate the numbers. I happen to be an optimist. I think they will be able to get some Republican votes working with Joe Manchin to pass not all of what he wants, but some of what he wants. Because remember what he said in his first news conference: politics is the art of the possible. That's who Joe Biden is, and I think that's what he wants. That's what he wants to bring to his negotiations on the Hill.
Linda Schact and Joey Garrison are our guests. We're talking about the first 100 days of Joe Biden in the White House. Back to continue our conversation after this break.